old clock exploded against the marble floor at 2:47 a.m. Majok's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. On the monitor wall before him, the new nanny, hired less than 3 hours ago, stood over the shattered remains of a $20,000 antique, completely unbothered by the security alarm now screaming through his mansion. "Sir, do I engage?" Mr. Lim's hand was already on his weapon, but Majok couldn't speak because the woman on the screen was crouching over the wreckage, pulling something small and electronic from the broken clock mechanism. Something that pulsed with a sickly blue light. Something that had been hidden inside a gift from his most trusted business partner. Jessica Okafor stood, brushed gold fragments off her bright purple scrubs, and looked directly into the camera. Not past it, at it. Her dark eyes found him through the lens like she could see straight into his bulletproof surveillance room. "This is why she won't stop crying, Mr. Koo." Her voice came through crystal clear, cutting through the alarms. "High-frequency sonic emitter. Been torturing your daughter for months while you watched through your cameras like a ghost." She held up the pulsing device. "Are you going to help me find the rest of them, or are you going to keep hiding behind that screen?" The room went silent. Even the alarms seemed to pause. Because behind Jessica, on the small bed surrounded by medical equipment and untouched therapy toys, 3-year-old Micha had stopped crying for the first time in 6 months. The little girl sat up, staring at this stranger who just shattered a family heirloom, and her tiny voice, unused for half a year, whispered one word: "Hurts," stopped. Majok's heart detonated in his chest. Mr. Lim grabbed his radio. "All units to the nursery." "Stand down." Majok's voice was barely human. His eyes locked on the monitor where his daughter was actually moving, reaching toward Jessica with trembling hands. "Nobody touches her. Nobody goes near that room." "Sir, she destroyed Chairman Park's gift." "Chairman Park." Majok's words came out like shards of ice. "Who visited last week? Who insisted that clock be placed in Micha's room? Who asked about her condition every single day?" The pieces clicked together with the precision of a loaded gun. On screen, Jessica was already moving, scanning the nursery with the focus of someone who knew exactly what she was looking for. She pulled down a decorative music box from the shelf, unscrewed the base, another device. She tossed it to the floor and crushed it under her heel. Micha's shoulders relaxed further. Jesus Christ, Mr. Lim breathed. "They've been torturing a baby." Jessica found a third emitter, hidden inside a stuffed rabbit, a fourth in the baby monitor. With each device she destroyed, Micha's breathing steadied, her tears slowed, her small body uncurled from the defensive position she'd held for 186 days. Then Jessica turned back to the camera, and this time when she spoke, there was something fierce and protective burning in her expression. Something that reminded Majok so much of his dead wife, it physically hurt. "I'm a nursing student, Mr. Koo. I took this job because my family is drowning in debt, and you pay better than anyone else in Seoul. I've got nothing to lose but my dignity." She picked up Micha, who didn't flinch, didn't cry, just melted into her arms. "But this baby has everything to lose. So you can fire me like you did the other 11 nannies, or you can get down here and be a father instead of a prison warden. Your choice." Majok was moving before his brain caught up with his body. Out of the surveillance room. Down the corridor. Taking stairs instead of waiting for the elevator because his daughter, his Micha, had just spoken for the first time since her mother's funeral, and he'd been too busy watching screens to notice someone was hurting her. The nursery door flew open. Jessica didn't jump. She just stood there holding his daughter, those bright purple scrubs like a splash of color in his sterile, monitored world, and waited. Micha looked at him with eyes that were clear, actually seeing him for the first time in months. "Duh." Her tiny voice cracked. The loud stopped. Majok fell to his knees. Did Jessica just expose a conspiracy that goes deeper than anyone imagined, or did she just sign her own death warrant in the most dangerous house in Seoul? Drop your answer below and subscribe to see how this unfolds, and comment where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. The morning after the clock shattered, Jessica found Majok sitting in Micha's nursery like a man who'd forgotten how chairs worked. He was perched on the edge of a small wooden stool meant for children, his perfectly tailored suit looking ridiculous against the pastel walls, staring at his daughter as if seeing her for the first time. Micha was asleep. Actually asleep, not that horrible half-conscious state of exhaustion she'd been trapped in for months. Her breathing was steady, her small fists unclenched, her face peaceful. Jessica stepped inside quietly, carrying her bag and a thermos of coffee she'd made in the kitchen. She'd been awake all night, reviewing medical journals and frequency charts on her phone, trying to understand exactly what had been done to this child. The rage still simmered under her skin, but she kept it controlled. Professional. Majok looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed, bloodshot. He looked like a man who'd spent the night drowning in regret. "You didn't go to bed," she observed, setting the thermos on the dresser. "Neither did you." His voice was rough, unused. "I watched you on the monitors. You've been researching sonic frequencies for 6 hours." Of course he'd been watching. Jessica wasn't surprised. She pulled out a notebook from her bag, flipped it open to a page covered in her handwriting and diagrams. The devices were set to 18 to 22 kilohertz. That's right at the edge of human hearing, especially for children. Adults usually can't detect it at all, but kids, she gestured to Micha. It would feel like constant pressure in her head, migraine-level pain, nausea, anxiety. No wonder she couldn't stop crying. Magic's jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. Who? I don't know yet, but whoever planted those devices knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't random cruelty. This was calculated, strategic. Jessica met his eyes. Someone wanted your daughter sick. Someone wanted you distracted. Chairman Park brought that clock personally. Majok's voice was ice over fire. He insisted it be placed exactly where it was. He asked about Micha every day, seemed so concerned. Then you have your first suspect. Jessica closed the notebook. But right now, your daughter needs structure, routine, safety. She needs to know that the pain is gone and it's not coming back. She needs a parent, not a detective. Majok flinched like she'd struck him. Jessica softened, just slightly. I'm not trying to be cruel, Mr. Koo. I'm trying to help. Micha has been through trauma, real physical trauma. She's going to need time to heal, to trust again. That starts with you being present, not through a camera, here, in the room. I don't know how. The admission came out strangled, broken. Every time I look at her, I see your wife. Jessica finished quietly. I know, Mr. Lim told me. I'm sorry for your loss. Majok stood abruptly, walked to the window. His reflection in the glass looked like a man at war with himself. My wife believed in presence, in being there physically, emotionally. I built this security system after she died because I thought if I could just see everything, control everything, I could keep Micha safe. He laughed, bitter and hollow. Instead, I watched my daughter suffer for 6 months and called it medicine. Jessica let the silence sit for a moment. Then she said, You can't change the past 6 months, but you can change today. Micha stirred, made a small sound. Both adults turned immediately. The little girl's eyes opened slowly, still cautious, still afraid. But when she saw Jessica, something in her small face relaxed. Jessica moved to the bedside, knelt down to Micha's level. Good morning, precious girl. How are you feeling? Micha's eyes darted to her father, then back to Jessica. Her voice was barely a whisper. Quiet. Yes, it's quiet now. The hurt is gone. Jessica smoothed back Micha's dark hair. Are you hungry? Would you like some breakfast? The child's eyes went wide with something like fear. Her small body tensed. Jessica frowned. She glanced at the medical chart still hanging on the wall, scanned the notes from previous caregivers. Meals had been a battle for months. Micha would take a few bites, then refuse everything else. The doctors had attributed it to grief, to stress. But Jessica was beginning to suspect the doctors had been wrong about a lot of things. Mr. Koo, she said without taking her eyes off Micha, when was the last time your daughter ate a full meal? Majok's silence was answer enough. Jessica made a decision. I'm going to try something. You can watch from your monitors if it makes you more comfortable, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Majok looked at his daughter, at this woman in bright scrubs who'd destroyed a fortune in antiques and somehow made his child speak again, and nodded. 20 minutes later, Jessica had transformed the nursery into something unrecognizable. She'd pushed the medical equipment against the walls, spread a colorful blanket on the floor, and set up a small breakfast picnic. Fruit cut into shapes, scrambled eggs, toast with jam. Nothing fancy, but presented like a celebration. And from her phone, connected to a small portable speaker, music filled the room. Not lullabies, not classical music. African rhythms, the kind her mother used to play in their kitchen back home, all drums and joy and movement. The kind that made your heart beat in time, made your body want to sway even when you were standing still. Micha sat on the blanket, staring at the food with suspicion and longing. Jessica didn't push. She just sat across from the little girl, moving her shoulders to the rhythm, letting the music wash over them both. She picked up a piece of mango, ate it herself, smiled. My mama used to say that food tastes better with music, Jessica said conversationally, as if she weren't being watched by a dozen cameras and the most dangerous man in Seoul. The rhythm helps your tummy know it's safe to be hungry, helps your body remember that eating is supposed to feel good. Micha's small hand reached out, touched the edge of the blanket. Her foot tapped, just once, against the floor. Jessica's heart soared, but she kept her face calm. She picked up another piece of fruit, this one cut into a star shape, and held it out. This one's my favorite. Want to try? The little girl's eyes moved from the fruit to Jessica's face, searching for something. Permission, maybe. Or proof that this wasn't another trap. Jessica just smiled, warm and patient, and let the music fill the space between them. Micha took the star-shaped mango, put it in her mouth, chewed slowly, carefully, like she was testing whether pain would follow. It didn't. Her eyes widened. She took another piece, then another. Jessica started humming along with the music, a low, soothing sound that her mother had hummed when Jessica was small and scared. Micha watched her, fascinated, and slowly, so slowly, began to eat in rhythm with the song. 1 bite, 2, 3. By the time the song ended, Micha had eaten more than she'd consumed in the past week combined. Jessica wanted to cheer, to celebrate, but she kept herself steady. You did so well, Micha. I'm so proud of you. The little girl looked down at her empty plate, then back up at Jessica with something that might have been the beginning of a smile. In his surveillance room, Majok watched through the monitors with tears streaming down his face that he didn't bother to wipe away. The next 3 days followed a pattern. Jessica established routines built around music, around gentle movement, around the slow rebuilding of trust. She sang while helping Micha dress. She hummed while brushing the little girl's hair. She played rhythms on her thighs while they read books together, turning the nursery into a space filled with sound that healed instead of hurt. Micha began to bloom. Small changes at first, holding eye contact for longer, reaching for Jessica's hand without being prompted, laughing at a silly face. But changes nonetheless. And Majok watched it all, hour after hour, from his wall of screens. On the 4th morning, Jessica was straightening the nursery while Micha napped when she found the folder. It had been shoved behind the changing table, probably knocked there by accident during one of the chaotic nights when Micha had been at her worst and nannies had been rushing around trying everything to soothe her. Jessica picked it up, intending to put it back wherever it belonged, but the cover fell open and she saw the header. Co-Enterprises, Internal Financial Review, Confidential. She should have closed it immediately. Should have returned it to Majok's office without looking. But a name caught her eye. Chairman Park, and next to it, a series of numbers that even her non-business brain recognized as massive fund transfers. Jessica's hands started shaking. She flipped through more pages, saw more names she'd heard whispered by the security staff, family names, business partners, all connected to a web of transactions that looked wrong even to her untrained eye. And in the margins, someone had written notes in Korean. Jessica couldn't read most of it, but she recognized certain words that Mr. Lim had taught her. Words like delay and distract and emergency. Her blood went cold. The door to the nursery opened. Jessica jumped, nearly dropping the folder. Mr. Lim stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, he just looked at her, at the folder in her hands, at the way she'd gone pale. Then he stepped inside and quietly closed the door behind him. You found it, he said, not a question. Jessica's mouth went dry. I didn't mean to. It was just here I was cleaning. I know. Mr. Lim moved closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I left it here. Jessica's world tilted. You what? If this story is making sense to you and you're learning something from it, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me for more stories like this. You're the first person who's actually helped that little girl. The first person who looked at her and saw a patient instead of a problem. Mr. Lim's eyes were hard, but there was something like respect in them. I've been watching you, Miss Okafor. Not just on the cameras, really watching. And I think you might be the only person in this house who actually cares about Micha more than you care about the Koo family money. I don't understand. Jessica clutched the folder tighter. Why would you? because someone in this family has been bleeding Mr. Ku's empire dry for the past year, and they've been using Micha's condition as a smokescreen. Mr. Lim's voice was bitter. Every time Mr. Ku got close to noticing discrepancies in the accounts, something would happen with Micha. A medical emergency, a new specialist needed, his attention would shift and the thefts would continue. Jessica felt sick. The sonic devices were just the latest method. Before that, it was medications that made her worse instead of better. Stress triggers carefully orchestrated during important business meetings. Mr. Lim's fists clenched. I've been gathering evidence for months, but I'm head of security. If I bring this to Mr. Ku, the family will close ranks. They'll say I'm overstepping, trying to gain power, being paranoid. But if someone outside the family found it, someone he's starting to trust, someone who's already proven she'll break the rules to protect his daughter. Mr. Lim met her eyes. Yes. Jessica looked down at the folder, her mind racing. This could get me killed. Yes. This could get me deported, arrested, disappeared. Yes. So why are you really doing this? Jessica studied his face. What's your angle? Mr. Lim was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, My sister died in a hospital 3 years ago. The doctors said it was complications from a routine surgery, but I know better. Someone in the Ku family needed an business associate. My sister was a perfect match. She went in for appendicitis and came out without a kidney. His voice shook. I can't prove it. I'll never be able to prove it. But I know. Jessica's heart broke. Mr. Lim, I can't save my sister, but I can help you save that little girl from becoming another casualty of this family's greed. He moved toward the door, paused. Read the folder. Hide it somewhere safe, and when you're ready to show Mr. Ku, I'll make sure you get the chance. He left as quietly as he'd arrived. Jessica stood frozen in the middle of the nursery, holding evidence of conspiracy and theft, and listening to Micha's peaceful breathing, and understanding with perfect clarity that she'd just crossed a line there was no coming back from. She tucked the folder into her bag, buried under medical supplies and a change of clothes. Then she went back to straightening the nursery as if the entire world hadn't just shifted beneath her feet. 2 days later, Jessica made another decision that would change everything. She found Majok in his office, surrounded by his wall of monitors as always. He looked up when she entered, and she saw that he'd been watching the nursery feed. Watching Micha play with blocks, humming one of the African songs Jessica had taught her. She's getting better, Majok said softly. She is, but she needs more. Jessica sat down across from him without being invited. Mr. Ku, when was the last time Micha went outside? Majok blinked. Outside? Yes, sunshine, fresh air, grass under her feet, the things children need to actually thrive, not just survive. Jessica leaned forward. She's been cooped up in that nursery for months. No wonder she was deteriorating. Humans aren't meant to live in boxes, no matter how comfortable. It's not safe. Your entire property is surrounded by security. You have guards on every entrance, cameras covering every angle. Jessica's voice was gentle but firm. The only thing keeping Micha trapped inside is your fear. Majok's face went hard. You don't understand the threats. I understand that your daughter has been tortured by people who had access to your home, people you trusted, and keeping her locked away didn't stop them. Jessica softened. I'm not asking you to take her to a public park. I'm asking you to let her play in your own garden. 30 minutes, with me and your entire security team watching. That's all. Majok stared at his monitors, at the little girl who looked so much like her mother, and Jessica could see the war happening behind his eyes. I'll be with her the entire time, Jessica promised. I won't let her out of my sight. I know. Majok's voice was barely audible. That's not what I'm afraid of. Jessica waited. What if she smiles? Majok finally said. What if she laughs, and it sounds exactly like her mother, and I... He stopped, couldn't finish. Jessica's heart ached. Then you'll know she's healing, and maybe you will too. Majok closed his eyes, took a breath that shuddered through his entire body. Then he reached for his phone and called Mr. Lim. Prepare the East Garden for outdoor activity. Full security sweep. I want guards on every corner and eyes on every entrance. He paused. My daughter is going outside. 30 minutes later, Jessica held Micha's hand as they stepped through the French doors into the garden. The little girl froze on the threshold, staring at the sunlight like she'd forgotten what it looked like. It's okay, Jessica murmured. We're safe, I promise. Micha took one tentative step onto the stone path, then another. The sun hit her face, and she gasped, a tiny sound of wonder. Jessica led her slowly across the garden to where grass grew thick and soft. Want to take your shoes off? Feel the grass? Micha looked up at her with wide, uncertain eyes. Jessica smiled, kicked off her own shoes, wiggled her toes in the grass, and made an exaggerated happy face. It feels nice, cool and soft. Micha giggled. Actually giggled, the sound bright and clear as bells. Jessica's breath caught. She helped Micha remove her small shoes, watched as the little girl's feet touched grass for the first time in half a year. Micha's whole face transformed. She took a few steps, testing, then a few more. Then she started running, small, unsteady steps at first, then faster. Her arms spread wide like wings, and she laughed. Pure, joyful, unrestrained laughter that echoed across the garden and probably through every security monitor in the mansion. Jessica stood there with tears streaming down her face, watching this child rediscover happiness. From his office window, Daugh watched his daughter run and laugh and be alive in a way she hadn't been since her mother died. He watched Jessica chase after her, scooping her up and spinning her around, both of them laughing now. And for the first time in 6 months, Daugh smiled. A real smile, not the business mask he wore for cameras and contracts. A smile his wife would have recognized. Mr. Lim appeared beside him silently. She's good for them both. Daugh nodded, unable to speak past the emotion closing his throat. Sir, there's something you should know. Mr. Lim's voice dropped. Miss Okafor found the financial documents, the ones tracking the discrepancies. Daught's entire body went still. And she hasn't run, hasn't sold the information to competitors, hasn't tried to blackmail you. Mr. Lim paused. She's been researching corporate and Korean business regulations every night after Micha falls asleep. I think she's trying to understand the full scope before she brings it to you. Daugh turned to look at his head of security. You left those documents where she'd find them. Yes, sir. Why? Because she's the only person in this house who looks at your daughter and sees a child worth protecting instead of a tool worth manipulating. Mr. Lim met his eyes steadily. And because you need someone on your side who isn't bound by family loyalty or business obligations. Someone who will tell you the truth even when it's dangerous. In the garden, Micha had discovered a butterfly. She was following it with careful, delighted steps while Jessica walked beside her, pointing out flowers and trees, naming colors and shapes. Daugh watched them through the window instead of through a camera screen and felt something crack open in his chest that had been frozen since the day he buried his wife. Keep watching her, he said quietly. Both of them. And Mr. Lim, if anyone makes a move against Jessica or Micha, I want to know immediately. Yes, sir. One more thing. Daugh's voice hardened. Start compiling a list. Everyone who had access to Micha's nursery in the past year. Everyone who gave gifts, made recommendations for specialists, asked about her condition. I want names, dates, and connections. Mr. Lim allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. Already done, sir. Daugh nodded. Then he did something he hadn't done in months. He left his office, walked down the stairs, and stepped out into the garden. Jessica saw him coming and tensed, protective instinct making her shift slightly in front of Micha. But the little girl turned, saw her father, and for the first time in forever, she didn't flinch. Daugh, Micha said, her small voice clear in the sunshine. Butterfly. Daugh's knees nearly buckled. He walked closer, slowly, and knelt down in the grass in his expensive suit. I see it. It's beautiful. Micha studied his face for a long moment. Then she reached out one small hand and touched his cheek. Daugh here. Yes. Daugh's voice broke. I'm here. I'm sorry I wasn't here before, but I'm here now. Jessica watched father and daughter look at each other, really look, without cameras or monitors or walls between them, and she knew that whatever came next, whatever conspiracy she'd uncovered, whatever danger was circling this family, this moment was worth it. Micha smiled at her father. A real, genuine, sunlight-bright smile. And Daugh finally understood what his wife had been trying to tell him all along. Presence was the only protection that mattered. I really want to hear from you, so go to the comment section right now and tell me what you think about this story and how it relates to your own experience. The days following Micha's breakthrough in the garden felt like watching ice melt in spring. Slow, inevitable, beautiful. Jessica established a new routine that included daily outdoor time, always with Micha's hand in hers, always with music humming between them. The little girl grew stronger, braver, more present in her own life. But Jessica couldn't shake the weight of the folder hidden in her bag. She'd read through it a dozen times now. Late at night, when Micha slept peacefully, and the mansion fell into that particular silence that only wealth could buy. The numbers told a story of systematic theft spanning nearly 18 months. Hundreds of millions of won diverted through shell companies, fake invoices, phantom employees. And at the center of it all, a web of names that made her stomach turn. Chairman Park, Vice President Koo Min-jun, Majok's cousin, Director Koo So-yun, his aunt. Even Lee Sang-woo, the family attorney who'd processed Jessica's employment contract. They weren't just stealing money. They were dismantling an empire from the inside while keeping its owner distracted with his daughter's manufactured suffering. Jessica needed to tell Majok. She knew that. But every time she tried to approach him, she remembered Mr. Lim's warning. The family would close ranks. They'd dismiss her as an outsider, a gold digger, someone trying to manipulate their way into power and money. She needed proof that couldn't be dismissed. Evidence that would force Majok to see the truth, even if it destroyed him. So she waited and watched and gathered more pieces of the puzzle. It was a Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after the garden breakthrough, when Jessica finally decided she couldn't wait any longer. Micha was having a music lesson with a teacher that Mr. Lim had personally vetted, a kind elderly woman who'd been teaching children for 40 years and had no connection to the Koo family business. Jessica had 2 hours of freedom. She found Majok in the library, surrounded by leather-bound books that probably cost more than her family's house back home. He was reading something on his tablet, but he looked up when she entered, and his expression softened in a way it never had before she'd arrived. "Jessica, is everything all right with Micha?" "She's perfect. She's learning a traditional Korean folk song." Jessica closed the library door behind her, her heart hammering. "Mr. Koo, I need to talk to you about something important." Majok set down his tablet immediately, giving her his full attention. The change in him over the past 2 weeks had been remarkable. He still had his monitors, still checked his security feeds, but he also ate meals with Micha now, read her bedtime stories, sat on the floor and played with building blocks. He was learning to be present, just like his daughter was learning to be whole again. "What is it?" His voice carried that edge of protective concern that appeared whenever he thought something might threaten his daughter's healing. Jessica pulled the folder from her bag, held it against her chest for a moment, like a shield. "I found something I think you need to see. But I need you to promise you'll look at the evidence before you react. Really look at it." Majok's eyes dropped to the folder, and something in his expression shifted, became harder, colder. "Where did you get that?" "It was in the nursery, behind the changing table. I found it by accident while cleaning. Not entirely true, but close enough. Mr. Koo, I think someone in your family—" "Stop." Majok's voice cut through the air like a blade. He stood, his entire body rigid. "You need to be very careful about what you say next, Jessica." Jessica's stomach dropped, but she pushed forward. "Someone has been stealing from your company. Massive amounts of money, redirected through fake accounts and shell corporations. And I think they've been using Micha's condition to keep you distracted while they did it." "That's a serious accusation." Majok's face was unreadable now, back to the mask he wore in business meetings. "Do you have any idea what you're suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm showing you documentation." Jessica held out the folder. "It's all here. Transactions, dates, account numbers. The pattern matches up perfectly with every time Micha had a medical crisis or needed a new specialist. Someone was creating emergencies to pull your focus away from the business." Majok didn't take the folder. "And you think you understand my family business better than I do? You've been here for 2 weeks, Jessica. You're a nursing student, not a financial analyst." The words stung, but Jessica kept her voice steady. "I know what theft looks like, Mr. Koo, and I know what deliberate harm looks like. Someone planted those sonic devices. Someone made your daughter sick on purpose, over and over again, to serve their own agenda." "You're talking about my blood relatives." Majok's voice was ice. "People who've been part of this family for generations. People who've stood beside me through everything. People who are stealing from you." Jessica's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "Mr. Koo, please, just look at the evidence." "Evidence you claim to have found by accident?" Majok's eyes narrowed. "How convenient. The foreign nanny, here for just 2 weeks, happens to stumble across confidential financial documents that implicate my entire family in conspiracy and theft. Jessica felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. You think I planted this? I think you're either incredibly naive or incredibly calculating. Majok took a step back from her. Either someone is using you to drive a wedge between me and my family, or you're doing it yourself for reasons I haven't figured out yet. I'm trying to protect Micha. Jessica's voice cracked. And you. Someone in this house has been hurting your daughter for over a year, and you're so blinded by family loyalty that you can't see it. Family loyalty is all I have left. Majok's composure shattered. My wife is dead. My daughter was broken. My business is under constant attack from rivals and competitors. The only people I can trust are the ones who've been with me since the beginning, the ones who share my blood. The ones who share your blood are the ones bleeding you dry. Jessica threw the folder onto the library table, papers scattered across the polished wood, evidence of betrayal spreading like an infection. Chairman Park brought that clock personally. Your cousin Min Jun recommended 3 different specialists who prescribed medications that made Micha worse. Your aunt So-yeon insisted on the baby monitor that had a sonic device hidden inside it. It's all documented. Majok stared at the papers, his jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. Get out. Jessica's heart stopped. What? If you're watching this till this moment, please comment where you're watching from and let me see the different places my people are tuning in from. Get out of my library. Get out of my house. His voice was empty, hollow. You're fired. Mr. Lim will escort you off the property and ensure you sign the non-disclosure agreement. You'll receive severance pay and a reference letter that says nothing about this conversation. Mr. Koo, please. I said get out. The roar echoed through the library, bouncing off expensive books and custom shelves. I trusted you with my daughter. I let you into my home. And this is how you repay me? By trying to destroy my family with conspiracy theories and forged documents? They're not forged. Jessica was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. I'm trying to help you. I care about Micha. I care about... She stopped herself, but the words hung in the air anyway. Majok's expression flickered with something that might have been pain. Leave, now, before I have you removed by force. Jessica stood there for one more moment, looking at this man who'd learned to smile again, who'd started being a father again, who was now shutting down every good thing because he couldn't face the possibility that his family had betrayed him. She wanted to scream, wanted to grab him and shake him and make him see the truth. But she could see in his eyes that he'd already made his decision, and nothing she said would change it. Jessica turned and walked out of the library, leaving the scattered evidence behind her. She made it halfway down the hallway before Mr. Lim intercepted her. I heard, he said quietly, falling into step beside her. The library is monitored. Of course it is. Jessica wiped her face angrily. Everything in this prison is monitored except the actual threats. He's scared. Mr. Lim's voice was gentle. When people are scared, they cling to what they know, even when what they know is destroying them. He's going to lose everything. Jessica stopped walking, turned to face the head of security. They're going to keep stealing until there's nothing left, and by the time he realizes the truth, it'll be too late. I know. Mr. Lim studied her face. Are you going to leave? Jessica thought about Micha, about the little girl who'd finally started eating full meals and sleeping through the night and laughing in the sunshine. The child who trusted her, who reached for her hand without fear, who called her Jessica in that sweet, careful voice. Do I have a choice? There's always a choice, Miss Okafor, but some choices cost more than others. Mr. Lim paused. If you stay, if you fight this, they'll come after you. The family will see you as a threat. Things could get dangerous. Things are already dangerous. Jessica straightened her shoulders. That little girl needs someone in her corner who isn't profiting from her pain. If Mr. Pak Koo won't protect her, then I will. Mr. Lim allowed himself a small smile. Then we'd better make sure you survive long enough to do it. The rest of the day passed in tense silence. Jessica stayed in the nursery with Micha, playing music and reading stories, and pretending her heart wasn't breaking. The little girl sensed something was wrong. Children always did. But Jessica kept her voice steady and her smile bright. She wouldn't let Micha see her fear. Evening came. Micha's music teacher left. Dinner was served in the nursery, a quiet affair with just Jessica and the child, eating together like they had been for 2 weeks now. After dinner, Jessica. Jessica gave Micha a bath, helped her into pajamas covered in stars, and settled her into bed with her favorite stuffed rabbit, the one Jessica had checked thoroughly for hidden devices before allowing anywhere near the child. Story? Micha asked, her small voice hopeful. Of course, precious girl. Jessica opened the picture book they'd been reading, a Korean tale about a tiger and a rabbit and the moon. But before she could start reading, there was a knock on the nursery door. Jessica tensed. Mr. Lim wouldn't knock. The staff knew better than to disturb bedtime routine. Come in, she called, her voice carefully neutral. The door opened. Majok stood in the doorway, still wearing his business suit, but something about him looked disheveled, broken. Daugh! Micha sat up in bed, her face lighting up. Majok's expression crumbled at the edges. Hi, sweetheart. I just came to say goodnight. Jessica started to stand, to give them privacy, but Majok held up a hand. Stay, please. He moved into the room slowly, like he was walking through glass. Micha, would it be okay if I read you the story tonight? The little girl looked at Jessica, uncertain. Jessica nodded encouragingly. That sounds wonderful. Your Daugh tells excellent stories. Micha considered this, then patted the bed beside her. Daugh's story? Jessica, listen. So Jessica sat in the rocking chair while Majok perched carefully on the edge of his daughter's bed, and he read the story of the tiger and the rabbit in a voice that shook only slightly. Micha fell asleep before the story ended, her small hand resting on her father's arm. Majok sat there for a long moment, just watching her breathe, his eyes red-rimmed and devastated. Finally, he stood carefully, tucked the blanket around his daughter, and pressed a kiss to her forehead that looked like both hello and goodbye. Then he turned to Jessica. Can we talk? In the library? Jessica's heart hammered, but she nodded. She followed him down the hallway, through the quiet mansion, back to the room where he'd fired her just hours ago. The scattered papers were still there, spread across the table like accusations. Majok closed the door, leaned against it, and for a long moment just looked at her. I spent the afternoon going through the documents, he said finally. Every page, every transaction, every piece of evidence you tried to show me. Jessica held her breath. You were right. The words seemed to cost him everything. About all of it. The timing matches perfectly. Every medical crisis Micha had, every specialist recommendation, every gift that turned out to be a weapon, they all align with major financial movements in my company. Jessica's legs felt weak. She sank into one of the leather chairs. Mr. Koo, I called my independent auditor, the one who works outside the family structure. Majok's voice was hollow. He confirmed everything. Chairman Park has been siphoning funds for 18 months. My cousin Min Jun has been creating shell companies and routing money through them. My aunt Seo Yun has been providing legal cover. I'm so sorry. Jessica didn't know what else to say. They used my daughter. Majok's hands were shaking. They tried to cover their theft. They made her sick, kept her suffering. Also, I'd be too distracted to notice what they were doing. Jessica stood, moved closer to him. It's not your fault. Isn't it? Majok looked at her with eyes full of anguish. I was so busy watching through cameras that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. I trusted blood over truth. I chose family loyalty over my daughter's well-being. You didn't know. I should have known. His voice broke. You figured it out in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Jessica. You came into my house as a stranger and saw what I'd been missing for over a year. Jessica reached out, hesitated, then gently touched his arm. You were grieving. You were scared. You were trying to protect what you had left in the only way you knew how. By hiding behind screens. Majok laughed bitterly. My wife used to tell me that cameras can't capture what matters most, that the really important things happen in the spaces between surveillance, in the moments you can't record or control. She sounds wise. She was. Majok's eyes were distant, remembering. When Micha was born, I wanted to put cameras in the nursery immediately. Standard security protocol. But my wife refused. She said that parenting required privacy, mistakes made in private, learning and growing where no one was watching and judging. Jessica could picture it, a woman brave enough to tell the dragon of soul that he couldn't monitor his own child. I installed the cameras the day after her funeral. Majok's voice was barely audible. I told myself it was for safety, protection. But really, I just couldn't face being alone with Micha without having a screen between us. Every time I looked at her, I saw my wife. And every time I saw my wife, I felt the failure of not being able to save her. You can't save everyone, Mr. Koo. Jessica's voice was soft. Sometimes all you can do is show up and be present for what happens next. You sound like her. Majok finally looked at Jessica, really looked at her. Like my wife, she would have liked you, would have trusted you with Micha immediately. Jessica felt tears prickling at her eyes. I care about her so much. I know I've watched you. He stopped, laughed without humor. Of course I've watched you. It's what I do. But I didn't need cameras to see how much you love my daughter. It's in every song you sing, every game you play, every gentle word you speak to her. Hold on for a second. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching this from. Then we continue. They stood there in the library surrounded by evidence of betrayal, and Jessica saw in Majok's face the moment he made a decision that terrified him. I'm going to have them arrested, he said quietly. All of them. Chairman Park, my cousin, my aunt, the attorney. Everyone involved in this conspiracy. The evidence is overwhelming. They'll go to prison for a very long time. Jessica nodded. That's the right thing to do. It will destroy my family name, create a scandal that will ripple through the entire business community. There will be investigations, lawsuits, media attention. Majok's voice was steady despite the trembling in his hands. Micha will grow up knowing that her own blood relatives tortured her for money. Micha will grow up knowing that her father chose justice over convenience, that he valued truth more than reputation. Jessica met his eyes. That's the kind of father she needs. Majok was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, why did you stay? His voice was raw, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard before. When I fired you this morning, when I accused you of horrible things, why didn't you just leave? Take your severance and walk away from this disaster. Jessica thought about all the reasons she could give. The money she needed for her family's debts. The experience working for a powerful family. The reference letter that could open doors. But in the end, there was only one truth that mattered. Because Micha needs someone who sees her as a person, not a pawn. And because... She stopped, took a breath. Because I think you need that too. Majok stared at her like she'd just revealed something he'd been searching for his entire life. I've spent the past 6 months drowning, he said quietly, watching my daughter suffer through screens, running an empire that was being dismantled from the inside, trusting people who were destroying everything I'd built. And I was so convinced that control was the same as protection that I couldn't see I was the one imprisoning us both. And now, Jessica asked gently, now I'm terrified. The admission came out like a confession. Because the cameras didn't save us. The surveillance didn't protect Micha. All my monitoring and control and careful watching, it was all useless against the real threat. So what did save you? Majok looked at her, and in his eyes she saw something shift. Something warm and real and present. You did. You walked into my house with nothing but your courage and your compassion and your absolutely terrifying willingness to smash priceless antiques. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You saw what I couldn't see. You fought for my daughter when I was too blind to fight for her myself. Jessica felt her heart hammering in her chest. I was just doing my job. No. Majok took a step closer. Your job was to keep Micha fed and clean and safe. You did so much more than that. You healed her. You gave her back her voice, her smile, her ability to trust. You taught her that the world could be gentle again. I couldn't have done it without. And you taught me something too. Majok's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You taught me that the most important things happen when you step out from behind the screens. When you're present, really present, even when it's scary and painful and makes you feel like you're failing. They stood there in the library, close enough that Jessica could see the exact moment Majok's walls came down completely. My wife used to say that a family isn't built on protection, he said softly. It's built on presence, on showing up, being vulnerable, choosing to stay even when staying is hard. Jessica's breath caught. I'm going to be present from now on, Majok continued. For Micha, for myself, for... He stopped, seemed to gather his courage. For whatever comes next. That's good, Jessica managed. Micha needs that. Jessica. Majok reached out slowly, carefully, and took her hand. His was shaking. I'm not talking about Micha right now. The library fell silent except for the sound of their breathing. I'm talking about the woman who destroyed my security system to save my daughter, who stood in this room this morning and told me truths I didn't want to hear, who stayed even when I gave her every reason to leave. His thumb traced gentle circles on the back of her hand. I'm talking about you. Jessica felt tears sliding down her face. Mr. Koo. Majok, he corrected softly. My name is Majok, and I would very much like to know the name of the woman who taught me how to be a father again. Jessica. Her voice broke. Just Jessica. Just Jessica. He smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. Thank you for everything. For Micha. For me. For not giving up on us even when we gave you every reason to. You're welcome. Jessica squeezed his hand. What happens now? Majok's expression grew serious. Now I dismantle a conspiracy, protect my daughter from the fallout, and rebuild an empire on truth instead of surveillance. He paused. And I was hoping you might consider staying, not as Micha's nanny, as part of our family, if you want. Jessica's heart felt too big for her chest. I don't know if that's... I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give, Majok said quickly. I know it's complicated. I know there's so much to work through. But Jessica, these past 2 weeks with you in our lives have been the first time since my wife died that I've felt like we might actually survive this. Like we might actually be okay. Jessica looked at this man who'd learned to step out from behind his cameras, who'd chosen truth over family loyalty, who was standing here vulnerable and present and asking her to stay. And she thought about Micha, sleeping peacefully upstairs, finally free from pain. Okay, she whispered, I'll stay. Majok's smile could have lit the entire mansion. Yeah? Yeah. Jessica laughed through her tears. But I have conditions. Name them. No more cameras in Micha's nursery. She deserves privacy. Done. And you have to be present. Really present. Not just watching from screens, but actually there. Playing with her, reading to her, being her father. I promise. Majok's voice was solemn. What else? Jessica took a breath. And you have to let me teach you some of my mother's songs. Micha loves them, and I think you would too. Majok laughed, the sound warm and genuine. I would be honored. They stood there in the library, hands clasped, the scattered evidence of betrayal surrounding them like fallen leaves. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. And for the first time since entering the Koo mansion, Jessica felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not behind a camera, not hidden by screens, but present, real, and ready for whatever came next. Quick pause. Use this second to tell me in the comments where you're watching this from. The arrests were scheduled for Friday morning. Majok had coordinated with prosecutors, gathered ironclad evidence, and prepared statements for the media. Everything was moving forward with the precision of a military operation. But the conspirators weren't going down without a fight. It started with small things. A security badge that stopped working. Jessica's fingerprints suddenly flagged as unauthorized access in rooms she'd been entering freely for weeks. Her personal belongings searched by guards who claimed they were following new protocols. Mr. Lim noticed immediately. They know, he told Jessica Wednesday afternoon while Micha napped. Someone tipped them off at the investigation. They're building a case against you. A case for what? Jessica's stomach twisted. I haven't done anything wrong. They don't need you to have done anything wrong. They just need reasonable suspicion. Mr. Lim's face was grim. I've seen this before. They'll plant evidence, manufacture a security breach, make it look like you've been stealing corporate secrets or compromising the family's safety. But Majok knows the truth. Mr. Koo knows the truth about the financial conspiracy. But if they can discredit you before the arrests happen, they can claim you fabricated evidence to frame them. Turn the whole investigation into a question of your credibility versus theirs. Mr. Lim paused. And you're a foreign nursing student who's been here less than a month. They're established family members with decades of loyalty. Who do you think most people will believe? Jessica felt cold fear spreading through her chest. What do I do? Be careful. Stay visible. Don't go anywhere alone. And for God's sake, don't access any files or systems without me present as a witness. Mr. Lim's eyes were hard. They're going to make their move soon. Probably before Friday. We need to be ready. That night, Jessica stayed in the nursery with Micha, reading stories and singing songs and trying not to let her fear show on her face. The little girl was thriving now, eating well, sleeping peacefully, laughing often. She'd even started calling for her father at bedtime, wanting both Majok and Jessica present for the evening routine. It was a small miracle, this family learning to be whole again. Jessica wasn't going to let anyone destroy it. Thursday morning arrived with deceptive calm. Micha had her music lesson in the garden pavilion, supervised by her trusted teacher and two of Mr. Lim's most loyal guards. Majok was in emergency meetings with his attorneys, finalizing the legal strategy for the arrests. Jessica used the time to organize Micha's medical records, documenting the child's remarkable recovery. It would be important evidence later, proof of the harm the conspirators had caused. She was filing the last folder when Mr. Lim appeared in the nursery doorway, his expression tight. "Miss Okafor, I need you to come with me immediately." Jessica's heart jumped. "What's wrong? Is Micha?" "Micha is fine, but Mr. Koo needs to see you in his private study. He said it's urgent." Mr. Lim's eyes held a warning. "I'll escort you there." Something felt wrong. Majok usually came to the nursery if he needed to speak with her, especially during Micha's lesson time. And his private study was his inner sanctum. Jessica had never been inside. But Mr. Lim was already walking, and Jessica had no choice but to follow. They moved through the mansion's elegant hallways, past priceless artwork and floor-to-ceiling windows, deeper into the private wing where even most staff members weren't allowed. The study was at the end of a long corridor, behind a heavy door with biometric security. Mr. Lim scanned his badge. The door clicked open. "He's waiting inside," Mr. Lim said, but his voice was strained. Jessica stepped through the doorway into a room that looked like something from a science fiction film. Multiple monitors covered one wall, showing security feeds from every corner of the property. Computer systems hummed quietly. Filing cabinets lined another wall, each labeled with corporate designations. And on the massive desk in the center of the room sat a leather-bound book that looked oddly out of place among all the technology. "Mr. Koo?" Jessica called out. The room was empty. She heard the door close behind her. Lock. Jessica spun around, her pulse spiking. She ran to the door, tried the handle. It didn't move. The biometric scanner glowed red. Access denied. "Mr. Lim," she pounded on the door. "Mr. Lim, what's happening?" No response. Jessica's mind raced. This was the setup. This was the trap Mr. Lim had warned her about. But why would he? Unless it wasn't really Mr. Lim. She pulled out her phone. No signal. The study was shielded, probably for security reasons. She was completely cut off. Jessica forced herself to breathe, to think. She scanned the room, looking for another exit, a phone, anything. Her eyes landed on the leather book on the desk. She moved closer, opened it carefully. Inside were more financial documents. But these weren't copies, they were originals. Account statements, transfer authorizations, emails between Chairman Park and Vice President Min Jun discussing the distraction strategy involving Micha. This was the smoking gun. The final proof that would make the case absolutely airtight, which meant this was exactly where they wanted her to be found. Jessica heard voices outside the door, multiple people. She recognized Chairman Park's distinctive baritone, Min Jun's sharp tenor. Caught her red-handed accessing confidential files. Been suspicious from the start. Foreign woman with no credentials. Probably working for competitors, industrial espionage. They were building their narrative, and she was trapped inside the scene of their manufactured crime. Jessica looked around frantically. The door was the only exit. The windows were thick, probably bulletproof. The ventilation system hummed overhead, circulating air through narrow vents. Wait, ventilation. Jessica grabbed a chair, dragged it under the nearest vent. She climbed up, examined the metal grating. It was screwed in place, but the screws looked standard. She jumped down, searched the desk drawers, pens, paper clips, a letter opener. She grabbed the letter opener, climbed back up, and started working at the screws. Her hands shook. The voices outside were getting louder, more insistent. She heard someone say security footage and police report. The first screw came loose, then the second. Jessica's medical training kicked in. Steady hands, controlled breathing, focus on the task. She removed the third screw, then the fourth. The grating came free. The vent opening was small, barely wide enough for her shoulders, but Jessica didn't hesitate. She pulled herself up, squeezed into the narrow space, and started crawling. The metal was cold against her skin, the space claustrophobic. She could hear her own breathing echoing in the confined tunnel, but she kept moving, following the air current, hoping it would lead somewhere. Behind her, she heard the study door open. Voices flooded the room. "She's not here. Check the cameras. The vent. She went through the vent." Jessica crawled faster, ignoring the way the metal scraped her arms, the way her knees banged against rivets. The tunnel branched, and she took the left path, then the right, trying to put distance between herself and her pursuers. She emerged into a larger junction where multiple vents converged. Below her, through another grating, she could see Majok's main security room, the one with the wall of monitors where he'd first watched her destroy the clock. And sitting at the console, watching everything unfold, was the real Mr. Lim. Jessica's heart soared. She kicked at the grating, trying to get his attention. Mr. Lim's head snapped up, his eyes widened. He was at the vent in seconds, unscrewing it from below, while Jessica pushed from above. The grating came free, and Jessica half fell, half climbed down into the security room. "They set me up," she gasped. "The study, the documents." "I know. I've been watching." Mr. Lim's face was furious. "Someone used a fake message to lure you to the study. They cloned my security badge, my voice pattern. It was sophisticated." On the monitors, Jessica could see Chairman Park and Min Jun in the study, arguing with guards. One of them held up the leather book, gesturing emphatically. "They're going to claim I was stealing that evidence," Jessica said. "They already are. They've called the police, reported a security breach, and attempted corporate espionage." Mr. Lim pulled up another monitor. But they made a mistake. The screen showed thermal imaging of the study from 30 minutes ago. Jessica could see herself entering, looking around confused, then going to the desk, only after examining the locked door. The timestamp proved she'd been trapped before she'd touched anything. "This footage is automatically backed up to an off-site server. They can't erase it." Mr. Lim's smile was sharp. "They tried to frame you, but they just gave us proof of their conspiracy to obstruct justice." Jessica sagged with relief. Then another thought hit her. "Where's Majok? Does he know what's happening?" Mr. Lim's expression darkened. "He's in a meeting with potential investors. Chairman Park scheduled it specifically for this morning, probably to make sure Mr. Koo would be occupied during the setup. We need to tell him." "Already done." Mr. Lim gestured to another monitor showing a conference room where Majok was standing, his phone pressed to his ear, his face a mask of cold fury. "I sent him the thermal footage 2 minutes ago." On screen, Majok said something sharp to the investors, then strode out of the conference room without waiting for a response. Jessica watched him move through the mansion with lethal purpose, heading straight for the private wing. "He's coming," she whispered. "Yes." Mr. Lim's voice held satisfaction. "And he's not happy." Majok appeared on the study monitors, surrounded by his personal security team, the ones loyal to him, not to the family. He didn't knock. The door was forced open with a key code override. Chairman Park whirled around. "Majok, thank God you're here. We caught your nanny attempting to steal." "Shut up." Majok's voice was arctic. "I've seen the thermal footage. I know exactly what happened here." Minjun stepped forward. "Cousin, you need to understand this woman has been manipulating." "I said shut up." Majok's eyes swept the study, landing on the leather book. "You planted that evidence, created a false security breach, attempted to frame an innocent woman to cover your own crimes." Chairman Park drew himself up. "How dare you accuse me? How dare you torture my daughter?" Majok's composure shattered. "For 18 months, you made Micha suffer. You planted devices to hurt her, prescribed medications to keep her sick. Also, I'd be too distracted to notice you stealing from me." The room went silent. "You have no proof," Minjun said, but his voice wavered. "I have every proof." Majok pulled out his phone, held it up. "Financial records, email chains, security footage of you placing those devices, testimony from specialists you bribed, and now, attempted witness tampering and obstruction of justice." Chairman Park's face drained of color. "Majok, please, we can explain. The police are on their way, so are federal prosecutors. You're all going to prison for a very long time." Majok's voice was emotionless. "I'm done protecting family members who destroy what I love." Aunt So-yeon appeared in the doorway, flanked by guards. "You're making a terrible mistake, nephew. Family is everything. Family is supposed to protect each other. You used a 3-year-old child as a weapon." Majok's eyes were empty of anything but contempt. "You're not family. You're parasites." In the security room, Jessica watched it all unfold with her heart in her throat. "He chose you," Mr. Lim said quietly. "When the security alert came through, when he got the message about the meeting with investors, that was his moment to choose. Business as usual or protecting what really matters." Jessica looked at the monitor showing Majok standing in his study, surrounded by the people who'd betrayed him, and she saw a man who'd finally stepped out from behind his cameras. "We need to go to him," she said. Mr. Lim nodded. "The nursery first. Micha needs to be secured before this situation escalates." They moved quickly through the hallways. Jessica's arms were scraped from the vents, her clothes disheveled, but she didn't care. All that mattered was getting to Micha. The little girl was still in her music lesson, completely unaware of the drama unfolding inside the mansion. When she saw Jessica, her face lit up. "Jessica, listen!" She played a simple melody on a small xylophone, beaming with pride. Jessica's heart melted. She knelt down, wrapped Micha in a tight hug. "That's beautiful, precious girl. You're so talented." "Da coming?" Micha looked toward the mansion hopefully. "Yes, Daugh will be here very soon." Jessica smoothed the child's hair. "Why don't we wait for him in the garden? We can practice your song." They settled on a bench near the pavilion, Micha chattering happily about music and butterflies and a bird she'd seen. Jessica held her close, breathing in the little girl's innocence, grateful that she'd been protected from the darkness that had been lurking in her own home. 20 minutes later, Majok appeared. He walked across the garden like a man emerging from battle, exhausted, shaken but victorious. When Micha saw him, she jumped up and ran to him with open arms. "Da, I learned a new song." Majok scooped her up, held her so tightly, Jessica saw tears streaming down his face. "I can't wait to hear it, sweetheart." "You crying?" Micha touched his wet cheeks, concerned. "Happy tears," Majok managed. "Because you're safe, because I'm here with you, because—" His eyes found Jessica over his daughter's shoulder. "Because our family is going to be okay." Micha seemed satisfied with this answer. She wriggled down and ran back to her xylophone. "Listen, Daugh." While Micha played her song, Majok came to stand beside Jessica. They didn't touch, but she could feel him shaking. "They arrested all of them," he said quietly. "Chairman Park, Minjun, Soyun, the attorney. The evidence was overwhelming. They'll be charged with conspiracy and attempted witness tampering." "I'm sorry," Jessica said. "Don't be." Majok's voice was firm. "They made their choices. I'm done protecting people who harm what I love." They watched Micha play, her small hands creating music that filled the garden with joy. "I saw you in the vents," Majok said suddenly. "On the monitors. I saw you crawl through that narrow space, scraping your arms, fighting to escape their trap. Do you know what I thought?" Jessica shook her head. "I thought, that's the woman I want leading beside me, not behind cameras or screens or walls of protection, right there in the fight, refusing to give up even when everything seems impossible." Jessica's breath caught. The investors were offering $1 billion deal. It would have stabilized the company, protected us from the scandal fallout, ensured Micha's financial future. Majok turned to face her fully. "And I walked away without a second thought, because you needed me, because nothing they could offer was worth more than making sure you were safe." "Majok, I'm not good at this," he interrupted. "The being present thing, the expressing emotions thing. I've spent so long hiding behind surveillance and control that I don't know how to just be vulnerable." Jessica reached out, took his hand. "You're doing pretty well right now." He laughed, a broken sound. "I'm terrified. The company is going to be in chaos. The media is going to tear us apart. Micha is going to grow up knowing her family was destroyed by betrayal. Micha is going to grow up knowing her father chose truth and justice over convenience and reputation," Jessica corrected. "She's going to grow up safe, loved, and free from the people who hurt her. Because of you." Majok squeezed her hand. "You saved us, Jessica. Not just Micha. All of us." "We saved each other," Jessica said softly. "You learned to be present, I learned to be brave, and Micha learned that the world can be gentle again." They stood there in the garden, listening to Micha's xylophone music, and Jessica felt something shift in the air between them, something significant and precious and terrifying. Majok seemed to feel it too. He took a breath, steadying himself. "Jessica Okafor," he said formally. "I have a question to ask you, and I need you to take your time answering. There's no pressure, no expectation, just an honest question from a man who's learned that the most important things happen when you're brave enough to ask." Jessica's heart thundered. "Okay. Will you stay with us? Not as Micha's nanny, not as an employee." He paused. "As family, as my partner in rebuilding what was destroyed, as the person I want beside me when I face whatever comes next." Jessica stared at him. Are you asking me?" "I'm asking you to lead this family with me," Majok said quietly. "I'm asking you to help me raise Micha not just for the next few months, but for all the years to come. I'm asking you to be present in our lives, really present, the way you've taught me to be present." That's a huge commitment. We've only known each other a few weeks. I know, it's fast. It's probably crazy. Majok's eyes were steady on hers. But I've spent the past year watching through cameras, keeping distance, protecting myself from feeling anything. And these past few weeks with you have taught me that distance doesn't equal safety. Presence does. Connection does. Choosing to stay even when it's hard. Jessica felt tears streaming down her face. You don't have to answer now, Majok continued. Take all the time you need, but I wanted you to know that whatever you decide, you've already changed our lives. You've already given us back something we thought we'd lost forever. What's that? Hope. Majok smiled, that real smile that transformed his whole face. The belief that we might actually survive this, that Micha might grow up happy, that I might learn to be the father my wife believed I could be. Micha's song ended. She looked up, saw them standing close together, and grinned. Jessica and Daugh together. Yes, sweetheart, Majok said, his eyes never leaving Jessica's face. Together. Jessica looked at this man who'd learned to step out from behind his screens, at the little girl who'd learned to trust again, at the garden full of sunshine and music and possibility. She thought about her family back home, about the debts she'd come here to pay off. She thought about her nursing studies, about the life she'd planned before walking into the Koo mansion. And then she thought about Micha's laugh, about Majok's transformation, about the way it felt to be part of something broken, learning to be whole again. Yes, she whispered, I'll stay. Majok's expression crumbled with relief and joy. Yeah? Yeah. Jessica laughed through her tears. Someone needs to make sure you actually stay present instead of hiding in surveillance rooms. I promise I'll try. Majok reached out slowly, carefully, and pulled her into an embrace that felt like coming home. No more hiding, no more cameras instead of connection. Just presence. Micha ran over, wrapped her small arms around both their legs. Group hug. They stood there in the garden, a man learning to be a father, a woman learning to be brave, and a little girl learning to be whole. And for the first time since Micha's mother died, the Koo family felt complete. The scandal broke the next day. News outlets ran stories about the arrests, the conspiracy. The Koo empire trembled under the weight of public outrage and legal investigations. But inside the mansion, now quiet without its conspirators, a different story was unfolding. Majok removed the cameras from Micha's nursery, from the garden, from the private spaces where families should have privacy. He kept security measures for protection, but he stopped using surveillance as a substitute for presence. Jessica enrolled in online nursing courses that would allow her to complete her degree while staying with the family. Her mother cried with relief when Jessica sent enough money to clear all the family debts, with a note explaining that she'd found a position, a family, worth staying for. Micha thrived. Her vocabulary expanded daily. She started sleeping through the night without nightmares. She smiled easily, laughed often, and asked for both Daugh and Jessica at bedtime. And 3 months after the arrests, on a quiet evening when Micha was asleep and the mansion was peaceful, Majok found Jessica in the library. I have something for you, he said. He held out a small box. Inside was a ring, not an ostentatious diamond, but a simple band of gold with African-inspired patterns etched into the metal. It's not traditional, Majok said nervously, but nothing about us has been traditional. And I wanted something that honored both who you are and who we're becoming together. Jessica stared at the ring, her heart in her throat. Jessica Okafor, Majok said softly. Will you marry me? Will you be Micha's mother, my partner, the person who keeps me present when I want to hide? Will you build a family with us based on truth and presence instead of control and surveillance? Jessica looked at this man who'd learned to be vulnerable, who'd chosen justice over family loyalty, who loved his daughter enough to demolish his own walls. She thought about the woman she'd been when she first arrived, desperate for money, focused only on survival, certain that love was a luxury she couldn't afford. And she thought about the woman she'd become, brave enough to destroy priceless antiques, strong enough to face down conspirators, present enough to help a broken family heal. Yes, she said, her voice clear and sure. Yes, I'll marry you. Majok slipped the ring onto her finger, and when he kissed her, it tasted like hope and healing and coming home. Upstairs, on a monitor in the main security room that Mr. Lim was pretending not to watch, Micha slept peacefully in a nursery, finally free from surveillance and pain. And in the garden where butterflies danced and music played, the Koo family, rebuilt on presence instead of protection, finally found peace. The Dragon of Soul had learned that the most important things couldn't be captured on cameras. They could only be lived moment by present moment with the people brave enough to stay. What did you think of Jessica and Majok's journey? Drop a comment below and subscribe to see more stories of love, courage, and families healing together. And tell me where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you and know how far this story has traveled. Thank you for being here.